again, Langley Christian School. This week, Mrs. Wood and I are both going to read you a story. Mrs. Wood, actually, I hope you hear her story first. She's reading a story about a little girl who makes a most magnificent thing. And some of you will remember that story. It's one of the stories that we have a poster on the ceiling for, and it was our winner one year. So I was wondering what story I could read to match that. So I am going to read a book called My Garden by Kevin Henkel. It's not a very long story, and it's also about a little girl who has a great imagination. She loves to garden with her mom, and as she goes through this story, she imagines what her garden is going to be like. There's a few things I really like about this book. I love the illustrations. I love when I open it up, the end papers, and we talk a lot about end papers, how the end papers are beautiful. They've got a sunflower. But then how the cover inside of the jacket is actually very beautiful and has a sunflower as well. And then on the back, how it's different from the front. And it tells us something about what this story is about. So that's what I like about it. I also like that inside this story, this is my own book, it's not the one that we have in school, but that inside there's a little bit here written by my sister, who's also a teacher and also is a teacher librarian, and she just sent this to me and said, this is for my gardening sister. So it's a special book because it's my book too, and I love gardening. So this is the story called My Garden by Kevin Henkel. My mother has a garden. I'm her helper. I water, I weed, and I chase away the rabbits so that they don't eat all the lettuce. It's hard work, and my mother's garden is very nice. But if I had a garden, there would be no weeds, and the flowers would keep blooming and blooming and blooming, and they would never, ever die. In my garden, the flowers would change color just by me thinking about it. They would change from pink and blue and green to purple. They would even have patterns. And if you picked a flower in my garden, another one would grow right back in its place. In my garden, the rabbits would not eat the lettuce because the rabbits would be chocolate and I could eat them. Hey, Posh. If I planted seashells, I would grow seashells. If I planted jelly beans, I would grow a great big jelly bean bush. How sweet would that be? Sometimes in my garden, good, unusual things would just pop up like that. Buttons and umbrellas and rusty old keys. And I see buttons right here too. In my garden, there would be birds and butterflies by the hundreds, so that the air was humming with wings. The tomatoes in my garden, they would be as big as beach balls, and the carrots would be invisible, because I don't like carrots. Posh. At night, the morning glories would stay open, shining like stars, and the strawberries would grow like lanterns. It is night now. Only the fireflies and the porch light are glowing. Before bed, I take one seashell from the shelf in my room, and I go to the garden. I poke the seashell into the ground. Who knows what might happen? If I cover it up with dirt and pat it down with my foot. What are you doing? Asks my mother. Oh, nothing, I say. Just working in the garden. And she's planted that little seashell, and look what's happening. So I love this story, and why I especially love to read it to you right now is that we have noticed that so many of you are planting gardens. You've actually sent in little video clips with your gardens that you've planted with your parents, and that is so exciting. And maybe once things start growing, you can actually show us what's growing in your gardens. So that is our story for today.